Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your kind remarks towards the organisation. So good morning to everybody. I'm delighted to be here today to present the latest accountability report and of course take questions from the board. I want to start by noting that yesterday, the 1st of May, the Independent Commission for Reconciliation and Information Recovery, the ICRIR, commenced its work. This is a seminal date. This has major implications for the police service. We are now required, along with other invested bodies, to stop all ongoing work on cases falling within the remit of that Legacy Act. It also sees the end of a number of coronial inquests and civil proceedings. I want to put on record for victims and families, this is an intensely unsettling, uncertain and frustrating period. Some have sought answers for many years into the deaths of their loved ones. In recent weeks, some families have seen inquests close, having been unable to reach a verdict before the 1st of May deadline. For some families, this will have been an unimaginably difficult time. I want those families to know that if they choose to approach the Independent Commission, that we, the PSNI, and I will personally make sure that every step is taken to ensure that the team, the Commission, has unfettered and unredacted access to all material they need to carry out their work into those cases that families approach them about. I've said this before and I want to reaffirm it again publicly here today. My position on transparency and openness is well known. Also, whilst ensuring, of course, the general requirements of national security are provided for. I've set all of this out very clearly in my Canova report. I do welcome the decision earlier this week by the Court of Appeal regarding the use of GIS at inquests. On Wednesday, His Majesty's Inspector at Constabulary Fire and Rescue Services published the results of its inspection into the PSNI into our crime data integrity. The service was graded in this inspection as good. Many of our fellow forces have had significant criticism from the data integrity inspection reports, so this judgment is acknowledged and very much welcomed. As you've mentioned, Chair, I've written to the Minister of Justice, the officers of the First and Deputy First Minister, the Secretary of State and the Northern Ireland Policing Board, amongst others, setting out a high-level assessment of the immediate challenges we face in the PSNI regarding our budget. Failure to properly resource the police service in Northern Ireland is beginning to have serious impact and is becoming increasingly noticeable to everybody. The truth is that things are taking longer, we are less visible, we are less accessible, and we are becoming more of a responsive service. I've made it clear to key stakeholders that going forward, the public and our partners are going to find the following. Non-emergency calls will take longer to answer. The public will wait longer for officers to attend these calls, and incidents and critical emergencies will also be delayed. Our capacity to investigate crime will be reduced and it will be slowed. Fewer officers investigating a rising number of crimes will mean slower investigations and, unacceptably in my view, a likely less satisfactory service to victims. There will be a detrimental impact on our ability to support national security operations. The ramifications of that should be known to everybody. We must drive down the distant Republican threat. We'll have to prioritise investigations. That will have a knock-on delay for the criminal justice system. Our neighbourhood policing teams will continue to shrink. Recovering from the impact on neighbourhood policing takes a protracted period when this key function of policing is not properly funded. Recently, and especially in the last few days, we've seen more reports of deaths on our roads. In the last calendar year, we had 71 road deaths. That's an 8-year high. In this calendar year, so far, we've had 21 road deaths. We have had to remove 21 officers from our proactive roads policing team. Following on from the decision to reduce the number of station inquiry officers in Northern Ireland to 17, we continue to actively review access to and closure of further police stations across Northern Ireland. Our ability to respond to sustained protest and public order is already reduced and will reduce further. I really understand that the public sector in Northern Ireland is under huge pressure. And in order to protect our core functions, our ability to support other public sector colleagues who call upon us when they can't deal with the issues that they are required to deal with will become more challenging. I've set out the numbers I believe the PSNI require to protect people and fight crime. The findings of the recent independent review of our demand and capacity work, which compared the available evidence and benchmarking with other jurisdictions and services in the UK and the Republic of Ireland, made it very clear there's a compelling case for a police officer headcount of 8,500 police officers in the PSNI and up to 3,000 staff. This is well below the circa 6,400 police officers and 2,400 staff we currently have, and it speaks for itself. Since 2010, which appears to be the turning point for the funding of the PSNI, public spending in Northern Ireland on public order and safety has risen, only by 8%, demonstrating the real financial difficulties facing that sector. But in the same period, the PSNI budget has fallen by 3%. At the same time, in that same window, the health budget has increased from 3.5 billion to 7.76 billion. That's a 121% increase. Our policing colleagues in Angarna Síochána have seen their budget increase by 25% since 2020. These figures are beyond startling. I fully endorse the Justice Minister's position that a marginal redirection of funding in favour of policing will go a long way to avoiding irreparable damage to the PSNI and public confidence by placing ourselves, this organisation, on a more sustainable footing. The situation we face is serious, it is unsustainable. It is therefore even more remarkable the fantastic work that our officers do day in and day out, which many of you on the board I know have experienced because of the ride-alongs that I'm delighted you've been on recently, and I encourage others to do the same. My report contains plenty of detail about the excellent policing that's happening every day, and I encourage everybody who's online and here today to read that detail. I do, of course, applaud all of our other colleagues in public services, but we must stop taking the PSNI for granted. We must recognise the invaluable work that we do, and we've got to make sure we've got an organisation that has the numbers to do it. In endorsement of your remarks, Chair, some good news. As you know, we've begun recruitment again, and I was delighted that you and I met the student officers at Garnerville on Monday. Finally, I reported to the Just Committee last week my concerns about the volume of work and the pressures placed upon a shrinking workforce in the PSNI, which appears unfortunately to have been a contributing factor to one of our colleagues taking his own life. I've met that family and the officers who worked with that colleague, who was the ultimate professional. He was impacted by his workload and the inability to do the job as professionally as he wanted to. And because our staff care, and I know that is the same across public services, but because he really cared, it impacted upon his health, and he didn't want to go sick because that would have put pressure on his colleagues. This is having a real impact, and we have got to do something about it. We have to make sure this organisation is properly funded so that we can provide the indemnity that we currently do for other public services. And I'm delighted, absolutely delighted with the support we've had from this board and the support from the Justice Minister with regards to our call for more funding. Very happy to take questions.
Thank you, Chief Constable.